I'm a little choked up because when I think about what God did for me, it was so miraculous. I promise you there will not be a dry eye in the house when I'm done. There's a saying that says that until you know that you're going to die, you really don't know what you're made of. And that was true for me. When I was 25 years old, which was about 18 years ago, I was diagnosed with a tumor that was the size of a football, and it was located in my abdomen. And I found it completely by accident. I, at 25, was a late bloomer. I was trying to figure out what was I going to do with my life. We all go through that, but most people sort of figure that out maybe by the time they get to college. And I kept changing majors, and finally I stuck with one, but it wasn't because I decided. Just by default I needed to graduate, and I ended up with English. But I kept wavering between so many different things. I had two great passions in life next to God. And one of the passions that I had was the desire to write. I love words. But the next thing I loved, and I think I loved it more than words, I loved notes. I loved to sing. I loved to sing. I think there was a songbird that flew into my throat when I was born because I loved to sing. And so I was wavering between music and writing. Do I want to be a poet or did I want to be an opera singer? And I finally, after 10 years of voice lessons and after pursuing a degree in English, I decided that notes won. I was going to be a singer. I was so happy. So I found an opera singer who sang for the Baltimore Lyric Opera Company. It's now defunct, but at that time it was located up in Baltimore. It's in a very beautiful old opera house. And there was an opera singer there who sang with the opera company. And I went and auditioned for her. And her name, I think, was Irina Zelinska. I haven't seen her in years, but I think that was her name. My memory isn't that great. But I went to her and I told her my ambition and my dream that I wanted to be an opera singer. And she said, well, audition for me and sing, and I'll see if I can take you on, and we'll see what we can do. So I was so excited. My first lesson came. I went to her studio, and I sang my heart out. I sang a song, a hymn, actually, from the Seventh-day Adventist hymn book. And when I was done, Miss Zelinska looked at me, and she said, "You have a very pretty voice." And I was so devastated because, you see, I wanted to have a dramatic voice. I didn't want to just have a pretty voice. So I thought, well, that's why I'm here. I'm here to learn how to have a dramatic voice. And so we began to sing. And as we were singing and going through vocal exercises, all of a sudden I began to feel a very sharp pain in my stomach. And I was so determined to keep singing. I had fought so hard to get an opera teacher to actually be my teacher, or an opera singer to be my teacher, that I was just like, I am not going to tell her I'm even remotely in any kind of pain because I don't want to stop singing. I want to keep going with my lesson. I've worked too hard to get here now that I finally decided what I want to do with my life. And we kept singing, but I kept feeling that pain, and it kept getting worse and worse. I got home, and I just thought, I'm going to go to bed. It just felt like maybe some really bad indigestion, and it was kind of knife sharp, and it was constant. I thought, I'll just go to sleep, and I'll wake up tomorrow, and I'm sure it'll be gone. I went to bed. I tossed and turned all night. I was in a lot of pain. I woke up the next morning, and it was worse than ever. The pain had become, it felt like an ice pick, just stabbing right like this, right into my lower right quadrant of my abdomen. Just nonstop. And my belly had all of a sudden become very swollen. And I went to a doctor, and when I went to the doctor within 2 weeks' time, my belly had expanded. Now I have to tell you, I'm a small woman. You can see I'm tall, but I'm small. I've always been that way. I was a size 2 at the time. And my belly expanded from a size 2 to a size 16. I got really big. And it happened within, like I said, a 2-week period that it swelled up like that. So I went to a doctor, And he told me, after doing some tests, that I had something called a mucinous cyst adenoma, which is just a fancy way for saying that I had a germ cell growth tumor which would grow very quickly, very fast. And it was a solid mass in my body. And he said, we need to get that removed. Now, at this time, as I said, I was a bohemian kind of artsy person who only looked at working as a means to making money so that I could support my habit, which was music. I was a music junkie, I was a poetry junkie, so working was just something that I did so that I could do those other things. So I wasn't a full-time employee, I did not have full-time benefits. There was no way I could pay for this $12,000 operation. There was just no way. So he was so gracious, and he had a lot of pity upon me, and he said, young lady, I am going to send you to Holy Cross Hospital. There is a clinic there for women they run, and there is a doctor there, and her name is Dr. Jamie Zeta, and she will perform the operation. She's just fresh out of medical school, but she knows her stuff. I wouldn't send you to her if she didn't. And because it's a clinic, they can do the operations for significantly cheaper. I think they could have done it for about $6,000. And so he said, at least that won't be so bad on you. So I said, I'll go there. At this time, I had also called an herbalist because I was interested in using as natural as possible methods as I could to try to get rid of this tumor or take down the swelling. And I called in a naturopathic physician, and she worked with me. And she said, yeah, I think we can really help you with whatever you decide to do. What we do with herbs will help facilitate your healing. So while I was doing that, I went to the other doctor, and she looked at me and she said, listen, she said, your prognosis is not good. She said, I hate to tell you this, but if you don't get that tumor out, you will be dead in 1 month. It's growing that fast. If you don't get it out in 1 month, I cannot guarantee you anything, because she said it's growing so fast and it's trying to make room for itself, and that's why your stomach is growing out. She says, but it's also pushing up into your lungs. It's also pushing down on your intestines. That's why my intestines were shutting down. I couldn't eliminate anything. It had engulfed one kidney completely. There was no more kidney. It had disappeared. It had taken completely over and swallowed my right ovary, my uterus, my fallopian tubes, had filled my womb completely. And she said, we need to schedule surgery. She's like, I'd like to do it within the next week. And she said, I wouldn't wait more than 10 days to do it. She was like, but we need to get that out of you. And I said, okay, I have a question. What if you go in and it's malignant? And she said, if it's malignant, I'm taking everything out. The kidney, because the kidney's gone. She says, if it swallowed it like that, there's no kidney inside of that thing. She said, I'm taking all of your reproductive organs out. And I said, I'm 25 years old. You take my reproductive organs out, that means I'm going to have to go on synthetic hormones. That's my understanding, correct? She said, yes. I said, and one of the side effects of synthetic hormones is stroke and cancer, correct? She said, yes. I said, stroke runs in my family, doctor, and so does cancer. I don't like your options. She said, that's the best I can offer you. So I went home, and I started to pray. Now, I have to describe my situation to you physically. I told you a little bit about what the tumor was doing, but let me tell you how I was feeling. I looked as big as a Buick. My stomach was so big, I looked like I was about to give birth to triplets. Not only did I look like I was about to have a multiple birth, I was kind of hunched over like this. And I couldn't support my weight. I was breathing like this because my diaphragm was crushed by the tumor. I couldn't get a deep breath. I had such severe pain because the kidney was swallowed. So I couldn't get any rest or any sleep. And then to top it all off, I had that just non-stop pain. As I said to everyone, I felt pain only twice, day and night. It was constant, nonstop. And so I was in bad shape, but I took her seriously that I needed to get this out. But I just didn't like the options. I thought, if I get this taken out, I mean, never mind that I could never have children if it was malignant. But even if it wasn't malignant, and she just took out the one ovary and the one kidney, then the other kidney and the other ovary would have to work twice as hard, and there was the chance that it could come back. There was a 50% chance that it would come back, and then they take the other one. So if they put me on synthetic hormones, then there was a good chance that I would end up with the cancer and the stroke that my family was just always getting. So I just thought, my odds don't look great. I don't really like this. So I started to pray. And as I began to pray, I started to read the Bible. And one thing became clear to me: I needed to seek an anointing. And in James it says that if you call in the elders, and if they pray over you, that the prayer of faith will heal the sick. And it also says that, if you confess your faults and your sins to God and to others, that's part of the whole process. So I took that very literally, and I thought, I don't want anything to stand in my way of God blessing me. I want to get healed. And so I thought, I'm going to call everybody I've ever offended, every person that hates my guts, everyone that I've ever done anything wrong to, and I'm going to make it right. And I did. I made a list, and I started calling everybody. They thought I was nuts. Some people hung the phone up on me. Some people never wanted to talk to me again. Some people threatened me to never. I did some bad things. So, and anyway, it was just really, really crazy. But some of it was beautiful. Some people just broke down in tears. They were like, "Thank you so much for calling me. This is amazing." And some people were just praising God and prayed with me. It was just really lovely. And a lot of things were healed. And I'm really glad that I did that. And as I was reading the Bible, I came across this amazing promise in the Bible. And that promise was found in the book of Exodus, chapter 23. I believe it's verse 25, 26, somewhere around there. And it says that if you serve the Lord your God and you keep his commandments, he will bless your food and your water, and he will take all sickness, not some, not partially, but all sickness away from the midst of you. And I thought, my goodness, that's like the most powerful verse in the Bible. And I thought, God's word is God's will. And when he says something, we can take his word. But look at all the people that have been sick throughout all the ages, who've had cancer, and we've prayed over them and they haven't gotten healed. So I just thought, how do I know that God will do this for me? And then it struck me, just because God can do something doesn't mean that he will do something on your time that you think that he will do it. And Mark Finley has a beautiful sermon, if you ever get a chance to hear it, on Audioverse. It's on healing, and it really answers this question very well. It talks about the way that God heals. When you ask for healing, he can heal you immediately, miraculously, gradually, or he can heal you in the resurrection. But either way, he will heal you and you will be healed. So I just thought, you know what? It doesn't matter if I'm healed now. Like Job, I was like, though he may slay me, yet I will love him. So God, if you want me to die, then I'm ready to die. If you want to heal me so that I can serve you, I'm ready to be healed so that I can serve you. If you want me to continue my life for you, in any way, shape, or form, partially, for just a little bit, or for a lot longer, whatever you choose, I'm happy. But I know you can heal me. And so that was my faith. And while I was coming to this decision, I got anointed, and I have to tell you, I was really excited about my anointing. I really was waiting for that magical, supernatural blast of energy to come right through my body, take the tumor out, and it'd be like the paralytic who, leaps up from the pool and is like, I'm healed, and running around. It didn't happen. So but I didn't lose any faith. I was like, that's okay. Now option one is gone. The miraculous healing is not going to take place. It's going to be either the gradual or God's going to let me die and I'll be healed at the resurrection. I'm okay with it. So I have to tell you, really, I truly learned faith from this experience. I didn't know what kind of faith I had. I did not know what I was made of until I got tested at this moment. I didn't know that this was in me or that I had the potential for this kind of faith belief. And I give God all the credit, but it was amazing to go through this because it really, really tested my faith and shaped it and gave me the ability to believe. I know where my faith came from, and it was based on that time. Just like with Abraham, he had really strong faith because he was asked to wait a really, really long time to have a kid. And when he finally has this baby, he's like, not only is Sarah past the point, he's past the point. It's not working anymore. They can't really technically have a child. And God let that happen so that when they did finally have a kid, there would be no question that it was a supernatural gift from God that this baby was, that they were given. And I really drew hope at that time from Abraham's journey and from his story, especially from what was read today in the book of Romans, when you come across that verse where it says, and against all hope, Abraham believed. Against all hope. When there is no hope left, and you still continue to believe. See, it's one thing if you're like, if you're standing at the Red Sea, and the Red Sea opens up first, and you're like, all right, going through. But, the Red Sea didn't open up for the children of Israel before they needed to go through it. It only opened when they went forward into the water, and then the water cleared. So we have to move forward, and then when we move forward, God will open the way. If we sit there and wait for him to open it up, it may not happen because we have to step out in faith. And so I think we're too, focused on results and too focused on, well, I'll do it if God opens up the way for me. We look at the Israelites and we're like, oh man, those crazy Israelites, God just opened up the Red Sea for them. They went through triumphantly. I mean, this was a miracle that defies the laws of physics. The water goes up on either side, and then they get to the other side, and then 3 days later, they're cursing God and blaspheming him over bread and water in the desert, and we look down on them, but we are no better. We are no better. Our faith is weak, if not worse than theirs, because we have the benefit of everything they had. Plus, we have all of the New Testament, and we have Jesus. And if Jesus isn't back right now, it's because we have not embraced the faith that he has given us. We need to live more faithful lives. I'm grateful for this experience that I had with this tumor because it pushed me into a place of faith, a place of belief with God. It challenged me. We need to be challenged in our faith. So when these terrible trials come, then count it all joy that we've fallen into diverse temptations, knowing this, that the trying of your faith, as James says, works patience, but let patience have its perfect work, that you may be perfect and entire, wanting nothing. So I had an appointment to get my body x-rayed to see exactly how extensive the tumor was. They had done sonograms, but now they wanted to do an x-ray. So they had a barium dye appointment for me where you drink this dye and it goes in and it radiates your body, and then they can look at it on an x-ray and see just where the tumor is. Well, I came under a conviction, very strong conviction, that God would heal me of his own free will and his own power. And I was still under the conviction that he could do it, but it was up to him. I wasn't presuming that he would do it. I just knew that he could. And I felt, God, I believe that you will do this for me, but if you choose not to, I'm prepared to die because I don't like the options that are available to me. And when Jesus healed, were there any scars? Was there any sign that the knife went in? There wasn't. There were no side effects. And I wanted that kind of healing because, again, I just didn't want to live with what they were proposing to me. Now, many people every day make the decision to have the surgery that I rejected. They're willing to live with that, but I wasn't. And because I wasn't, I turned to Jesus and I said, I know you can do this. And I want to make this point very, very clear. I did not want to be presumptuous. I never said, well, I know Jesus is going to heal me, so forget the surgery. I was like, Jesus, I know you can, if you wish to, if it pleases you, if it is to your glory. If you don't want to, it's okay by me. But I'm going to step out in faith and let you choose, Lord. So at this point, I believed in my heart that he could do it, but it was up to him. And I was at peace, complete peace, until I spoke with the doctor. And because at this point, I had been sort of my own world with the Bible, just praying, and had my anointing and had such a sense of peace over me. The doctor and I spoke, and she said, I noticed that you missed your barium dye appointment. And I said, yes. She said, well, we don't really need it. And she said, no, why did you not do it? And I said, well, I had heard about someone who actually went in and had the dye, drank the dye, and then their kidneys went into kidney failure. And I said, I already have one kidney that's been swallowed up by a tumor. I only got one left, Doc. And I don't need to be taking that dye into my body and then having that one go too. So I don't think I'm going to risk that. And she said, well, then you didn't really need it. And we can do it without that. And I said, I don't think I'm going to be having the surgery either. You could have heard the proverbial pin drop. And she said, you're what? And I said, I'm convicted that the Lord does not want me to go through with the surgery, that if he wishes to, that he can heal me. And she said, if you do not get this surgery, you will die. As soon as she said that, I thought, what am I doing? Am I crazy? You know, that promise in the Bible, is that really for me? Who am I to even think that God would want to heal me? Who am I to even presume that he would, reach his hand down, 2,000 years after the cross, after he healed all these people, and do that for me? Am I nuts? Am I, to play with my life this way? And I started to lose hope. And I remember what it was like to lose hope. My whole mind just became blackened inside. And when you're happy, it's almost like a feeling of lightness. We talk about light as a brightness, as something we can see, but we also, when we're feeling good, we feel light inside. It's like a weightlessness. I just felt really heavy and dark. All the light went out of me. And I just remember thinking to myself, I'm nuts. I'm crazy. She's right. What am I doing? She's a medical doctor. And all of a sudden, I heard a voice in my head, a clear voice. It wasn't an audible voice, but it was a voice that spoke to me nonetheless. And it was a voice that was a thought. And the thought was God's, because it was his word. And the voice said, is anything too hard for the Lord? And in that moment that I heard that voice, it came into that darkness like a slender thread of flame into my mind. And I just remember just grasping it with my thoughts and my soul and my heart and clinging to that in that darkness. And then immediately, as soon as I did, all the darkness shattered, and I felt light pour into my body, and I felt strong. It was the first time since I had been afflicted, since my voice lesson. And I had had to quit my voice lessons. I completely lost my voice. I lost everything at that point. But in that moment, I had no pain. I had none. That sharp pain, gone. I felt no pressing of the tumor on my diaphragm. I didn't feel it squeezing up against my sternum or just squeezing on my kidneys or pushing my intestines out of the way. I felt nothing but just absolute health and well-being in that moment. And I knew I was completely sick. That was one of the most phenomenal miracles to me, was just the complete cessation of pain. It was like the eye of the hurricane in the middle of the storm, just absolute peace. And I said to the doctor, Doctor, Zeta, I thank you so much, and I know that what you are saying, according to all that you have been taught, is true. But I believe that God is going to heal me. And now I had proof that God would heal me because I had heard his voice in my head. Now I knew. This was what I had been waiting for. And now he spoke to me. And now once God talks to you and he tells you, you can take it to the bank. And I knew he was going to heal me. And so I knew I wouldn't die, and I knew it wouldn't be at the resurrection that I would be healed. I was going to live in this life. I just didn't know what was in store. And I said, I'm going to forego the surgery. And she started crying. And she said, please, 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 please don't do this. She said, you will die. I have never seen anyone survive this. She says, please let me give you the surgery. Please, please let me give you the surgery. She said, I will do it for free. I will do it for free. Just don't do this. You will die. But at that point in time, I knew that God would heal me. I knew it. I knew with my whole heart. And so I said, Dr. Zeta, I said, I thank you so much. I said, but I know that this is what I must do. And so after that, I told my family, they all thought I was crazy. I come from a family of medical doctors and pathologists who for a living look at cancerous tissue and tell people what stage cancer they had, and they thought I was crazy. One of my uncles who was a pathologist had a daughter who died of cancer, so this was just, he called me up one night on the phone after he heard I was going to forego the surgery, and he said, if you forego the surgery, and he was the one with the daughter who died, he said, I will never speak to you again. You will not be my niece. I will cut you off. I'm Middle Eastern, and family is such a huge, huge thing. And for a family member to turn their back on you like that, to be ostracized is unbearable. You can't even begin to imagine that unless you come from a culture where the family is so strong like that. And so the only one who supported me was my mother. Now, my mother was a hospice nurse, and she took care of patients who died of cancer. She went into their house and she basically assisted them in the last days and months of their lives. And she had seen person after person die after radiation and chemotherapy. And I'm not in any way suggesting that those are not wonderful ways of healing. I just know that my mother had seen a lot of cases where these things, people had died after going through all of these. And she just said, well, I've seen enough death from it. So if you want to try this, she's like, I'm open to supporting you. I've never seen this work either because I've never seen anyone try it, but, you know, I'm willing to stand by you. My father is Muslim. He's a Shiite Muslim, Iranian Shiite Muslim. And they're the Muslim of all Muslims. And they let you know it too. And my dad was a secular Muslim. He was not very devout at all. As a matter of fact, he was pretty much an agnostic, if not atheist. And he told me, I don't want to see you die. It is not right that I outlive my daughter. And I said, Dad, pray. Well, my dad started praying. And about a week later, I get a call from Mrs. Helen Lee. Helen Lee was the mother of a friend of mine, a high school friend, and she was, I believe she had a master's in health and knew much about nutrition, and she had counseled a lot of people in using nutrition to help their ailments. And she said, listen, she just calls me up on the phone. She says, this is Helen Lee. Never spoke to the woman in my life. Now, I went to a Valentine's banquet with her son back in high school, like 5 years before. So I guess it must have made a really good impression on him and her because here she's trying to save my life. She calls me and she says, this is Helen Lee. She says, go on an all-raw diet. If you get an all-raw diet into your body, all the enzymes in the food will take the tumor out of your body and you will be healed. And then she hung up the phone. I was like, raw food? Now, let's talk about our friend Naaman. Naaman in the Bible, right? I'm Naaman right now. Why? Raw food. That is too easy. I want something difficult, like Martin Luther. I wanted to crawl up the 468 steps on my hands and knees and do something really difficult. But this was just raw food. And I hadn't heard much about it. I did a little research on it. And I thought, it's worth a shot. I was doing all these herbs, and it wasn't growing any bigger, the tumor, but it wasn't getting any smaller either. So I just thought, hey, it can't hurt. So I started to eat the raw fruits and vegetables. Nothing cooked, nothing processed, just all raw. And 6 weeks into a raw diet, the pain had stopped, by the way, on the raw diet. And 6 weeks into that raw diet, I started to experience a change in my body. And I knew that the raw diet was the answer, even though at first I was a little sort of skeptical like Naaman was. But remember that verse I told you about. If you serve the Lord your God, he will bless your food and your water. And see, I think God took me to that verse to prepare me for Mrs. Lee's advice to use food and water, and I thought, this is it. This is what God wanted me to do. He wants me to go on a raw diet. So I went on this raw diet, and what convinced me to do it? God uses the simple things in this world to confound the wise. So I thought, okay, went on the raw diet, and 6 weeks into it, I felt what I can only describe as labor pains, having never given birth, but I guess in a way I have. But I started to feel very intense labor pains, and I called to my mom. My dad came running into the room, and I got up and I fainted on my floor right as my dad walked into the room, and he's reaching down in his arms. He's like, "I'm gonna call an ambulance." And I'm like, "No, Dad, just get me into the bathroom." And he's like, "We're gonna call it." I said, "Get me into the bathroom." I knew that I was going to be okay. So my mom came in, she helped me, got me into the bathroom. I got into the bathtub, and in the course of 2 hours, I gave birth by the grace of God to that tumor. It came out of my body. I have never shared this because I've always been a little embarrassed about sharing it, because it was a vaginal birth. I gave birth to that. And it's not something we really want to talk about, and it's not something that, I just thought I would make people uncomfortable, but I've been giving my testimony recently, and people have been so moved, not just the women, but the men too. And I thought, why have I been hiding this? Why have I not been telling this? And that was one of the reasons, because I was a little bit uncomfortable. We shouldn't be ashamed of that. God healed me, he healed me. There was the woman with the issue of blood. Her story is in the Bible. Where was that blood coming from? It wasn't coming out of her wrist. Okay? We need to give God the glory, and this is what he did for me. And that was one of the reasons why, and I will share with you in a second another reason why I haven't really shared this with a lot of people. But in that moment, my dad, I have to say, one of the most beautiful things that came from that is that my dad became a believer in God. Amen. Now, he may not embrace Jesus Christ, but he embraced God. And I said to him, "Dad," he said, "I prayed for you and you were healed." I said, "God, I cannot outlive my daughter. That is not acceptable. You will heal her." My dad's very authoritative. So that was his prayer. And he said, "No, I know there is a God because I prayed and you were healed." So I am really just so grateful that God permitted this to happen to me, so that it brought my father to a place of faith. So I thank God for that. I'm thankful because it taught me how to take care of my body. I probably would have been eating and doing whatever I wanted, but it taught me to really respect the health message. And it was a blessing to everyone in my family about health as well, and changed a lot of lives immediately in our family. One of the reasons why I haven't shared this, not just because of the delicate nature of it, as I just mentioned, but I lost my voice, and I wanted to be a singer. I loved to sing. It was everything to me. And when I came out of this tumor, and I had a sonogram, it was gone from my body, but my voice was gone too. If I would try to breathe, to take a deep breath for singing, and I would start to try to sing, it would feel like there was a lead weight pressing down in my lungs. It felt like there was a weight in my head. I just felt like I was going to faint. I didn't feel like I could sing. And I sing something called bel canto style of singing. And bel canto singing is what opera singers use to sing. And it takes a lot of deep breath, because you have to sing without a microphone and be able to project your voice. And to really do that, you have to be able to really breathe. And if you can't get that kind of big breath that you need, forget it. I couldn't get the big breath that I needed, so I couldn't sing, and it was devastating for me. I had chosen the path of music, and God didn't restore my voice to me. He restored everything else. By the way, that kidney that got swallowed, it was there. God took the tumor out, kidney was there. Ovary, completely there. They had told me that the kidney and the ovary and the uterus and the fallopian tubes had all been devoured and consumed by the tumor, and that even if the tumor went into necrosis, it would take the organs with them. It did not happen. God completely healed me and restored me. It was a miracle. So, but the one thing he did not give back to me was my voice, and I see why now. God wanted me to pursue writing because he wanted me to be where I am now as editor of the Bible study guides. And had I gone into music, I would never have done that. So he put me in this path. But here's what's so amazing. Here's the most amazing thing. I graduated with a degree in creative writing, and the moment I graduated with that degree, my voice came back. But here's what's amazing. I used to play the piano. I took 9 years of piano lessons. I took 10 years of voice. I took 4 years of cello. I have music in my blood. I'm not made out of flesh. I'm made out of notes. I mean, it's my life. I stopped playing the piano. I stopped playing the cello. I couldn't bear music because I didn't want to hear other people do what I could no longer do. It was my love and my life. If I sit down and try to play the piano, I'm lucky if I can do Mary Had a Little Lamb anymore. I used to play Bach, Beethoven, Chopin, practice 5 hours a day. I just can't do it. I cannot pick it up. Same thing with the cello. I mean, it's not that I couldn't do it. I would have to sit and relearn everything. But when I started to sing, my voice was there. It was just there. I have to train it, and I'm currently taking voice lessons again. But it was given back to me by God. And I had him appear to me in a dream about a year ago and tell me that as long as I stay hid in him, he would give me my voice back if I would use it for his glory. So, the Lord gives and the Lord takes away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. But like in the case of Job, when God takes away from you, he restores fourfold. And my voice is stronger and bigger than ever before. And yes, I really struggle with it, and I'm struggling with my voice lessons and struggling to shape it, but I believe that, God has given it back to me to use for his glory. He has given me my health, and I just praise his name for all that he's done for me. Thank you.